All right, so yesterday we did the distance formula. This is all part of the same lesson, but I just put this on here because this is all we're going to do today. Since class is a little bit shorter today because the pep rally and all that good thing. 1 o'clock. I think they said 1. I thought they said 1. Anyway, come on, let's do this. So again, like we did yesterday, we developed the distance formula. We're going to develop the midpoint formula. And let's draw a line. Well, it's actually not a line. Just like distance. I can't find the distance. Come on, would you click? There we go. You can't find the distance of a line, can you? Why can you not find the length or the distance of a line? It keeps on going forever and ever. Well, that line exists. A line exists. They exist. There's no definition for them. All right. Anyway, just like we found the distance of a line. What? Segment. That's right. So we didn't find the distance of a line because the line keeps on going forever. You can't measure forever, and forever doesn't, like, the end of forever doesn't exist. All right, because it keeps on going after that. All right, enough of that. Let's do this. So what we're going to do is find out where the midpoint is. So if I was on this nice little program right here, see how I put that little blue dot right there? All right, so they actually tell you where the midpoint is with this program, so that's kind of cool. But the thing is, I got to click off of it and then on it again to put the dot. All right, so that's where the midpoint would be located. All right, everybody good so far? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to find the midpoint of two other things, which is going to give me the midpoint of the red line. So let me do these in different colors here. So here's what I'm going to do, just like we did yesterday. I'm going to draw the horizontal distance. Does that look right under there? Oops, I messed it up. Let's try that again. Yeah, I might have to go a little longer, but I'll fix it. And what color? Pink. Everybody says pink. Pink's too close to red. Let's go green. And then this is going to go straight down. Yeah, my yellow wasn't. Why do I do that? I think I let go of the shift key too early. There we go. All right, here we go. So what we're going to do is this. Let's put those points in there. Remember we put the x1, y1 stuff? All right, so let's call this point down here. It doesn't matter. You can call it x1, y1, or you can call it x2, y2. Let's just do the ones. Is that all right? So we'll call it x1, y1. And the point up here, what are we going to call that?
x2, y2.
Good. x2, y2. All right? And what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what's in the middle, all right? Or where is the midpoint located? Yeah. So let's do this point right here. This was a little bit tricky, but let's find that point. Do you remember how far over did we go on the x? x2. Good. So that's x2. And then we went down. How far down did we go? The same distance as we went down to get to here, right? Which is y1. Good. Everybody good? This is a little easier, I think. You don't have to do the Pythagorean theorem, which is nice. Okay, this one's a little bit easier. So what we're going to do is find the midpoint of the yellow one, right? Where is the midpoint of the yellow one? Do I just guess and put a point? No, I want to figure out where it is. Before we do that, let's do this. Do you remember we did a thing about being on the road and you had to go to McDonald's? Was that in this class? It wasn't? Okay, it was in the other class. Let's say you're right here. You're on the road, right? And you're right here, and you want to go to McDonald's. I don't know why. Just McDonald's seems like a place you would stop if you're on a road trip somewhere, okay? Chick-fil-A, all right. I'll just put an M for McDonald's, okay? So let's say you're right here. You're in your car. Watch this cool-looking car.
Beep, beep.
Boom, boom, boom. That's your car. Yeah, that's what kind of artist I am right there. That's it. So you're in a car, and let's say, and you've been on highway, right? You go on 95, you see these little skinny green signs on the side of the road, all right? And they're mile marker signs. Do you ever see those? You've never seen them? They're green. They're green. They're kind of skinny. They're about this tall. Well, maybe they're about this tall. And it says, It probably doesn't even say, shh. I know mile marker signs are exciting, but you got to pay attention. It probably doesn't say mile on it. It probably just has a number, all right? So let's say you're at, I don't know, mile marker 50, all right? Everybody with me on that? So that's the mile marker you're at. Doesn't mean you've traveled 50 miles. You could have traveled 500 miles, all right? But you're at mile marker 50, all right? And let's say you see a big old sign that says McDonald's and at mile marker 20, all right? So McDonald's is at mile marker 20. Let's say, oh, you know what? The McDonald's thing doesn't work. That was something else. That was for distance. I guess. Yeah, let's still do McDonald's. All right. Let's say you got a friend. Oops, I got to click off of this. I always forget that. I got to click off of it before I do that. Okay, so let's say you have a friend and they got the same exact car as you have. All right. And you're like, hey, it's been a while. Let's meet up. Well, you don't want to travel the whole distance, right, from one place to the other. So you say, let's meet halfway, all right? And we'll meet at McDonald's. All right, so we'll meet at McDonald's halfway. How do you find what mile marker you're at if you go halfway?
You see the distance to there, and the distance to there.
Okay, yeah, the distance from here to here would be the same as the distance from here to here. But what mile marker, what number mile marker are we going to be at? There you go. That's exactly right. That's the first time I think anybody's just done it right away. All right. Usually we say other things. She said, go 50 minus 20. Why?
Because then you find the distance.
Yeah. Actually, what you said is not actually correct. I kind of misheard you. But what you said is what other people say, and that's fine. All right. But look, it doesn't mean she's wrong, because just watch. If you go 50 minus 20, you got the whole distance between the two friends. Agreed? So how far are the friends apart? 30 miles apart, okay? So we want to meet halfway. So how long is each person going to drive? 15 miles, that's right. But this person has to go in this direction 15 miles, and this guy over here has got to come, guy or girl, has got to come this way 15 miles, right? So what mile marker are you at? What mile marker are you at?
15.
Not at 15, because 15's over here, right? 15 would be right here. It's not at 35. That's right, because you went 15. So from 20, if you go 15 miles, right? If you go 15 miles, you're not at the 15-mile mark. Where are you? You're at the 35, because it goes up, going this way. Everybody see that? So this is at the, instead of question mark, what is it? It's at the 35-mile mark. So that's 35. Does it work the other way? Yeah, because this person, you're actually subtracting, aren't you? You're going down. So you're taking 15 away from 50, which gives you 35. There's an easier way to do it. Take those two numbers, 50 and 20. What can I do? I'm going to actually do two things with it. What can I do in order to get those two numbers to equal 35? All right, so you can.
No, add them and then divide it by 2.
There you go. That's what I was thinking you were saying at first. You add them, okay, and then you divide it by 2. Does that work? Yeah. 50 plus 20 is 70, and 70 divided by 2 is 35. So that does work. So how do I find the midpoint of something between 2 points? Let's say I'm going horizontal. How do I find the midpoint? What do I do to the endpoints? I add them up and divide it by 2. What if I'm going up and down? I add them and divide it by 2. All right, everybody got that? All right, I always start off with that first. That makes sense, doesn't it? So let's take a look at the yellow. How do I find where the midpoint is? So I'll even put the dot. See that little blue right there? It would be right there. Okay, go ahead, Natalie. Not y1, because you're just doing the x. You're just doing the x. Minus? What did we just say? Okay, so it's going to be x1 what? Add it to what? No, because you're going in the x direction. Remember, Okay, the yellow is just going in the x direction. So don't worry about the y's with the yellow one.
And then
Divided by,
those.
yes. All right, so that's this point right there. Okay? What about the green one?
Y2 minus Y1.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter what order, right? You add one to another, it doesn't matter the order. So I'll just go 1. Is that all right? So I'll go y1 plus what? y2 divided by what? 2. Everybody good with that? So check this out.
What about the red lines?
Well, that's what I'm going to show you right now. So check this out. Well, before I do that, let's go to here. I'm going to put a point right where the midpoint should be, right? About right there. Okay. Now, with all that said, I'm going to take from the midpoint of the yellow and go where? Straight up. Oops. Why can't I do that? There we go. Okay. See where it hits there? And then guess where the green's going to hit? If I went this way, well, it's off a little bit. That's pretty good. It's close enough. All right. There you go. Everybody see that? So, with all that said, how do you find where this point right here is located? The midpoint of the red line. It's a point, so you have an x and a y, correct? You got an ordered pair. So let's put a parentheses. What's the x part going to be? Yeah, right, the yellow one. x1 plus x2 over 2. That's the x coordinate. Put a comma. What's the y coordinate? Oh, my thing would write correctly. Yeah, y1 plus y2 over 2. And that right there is your midpoint. Remember what we're finding. We're finding a mid what? A midpoint, okay? A point is an ordered pair. It's not just a number. Are you listening? No? Okay. Listen to me very carefully, because this is something that a lot of kids get messed up on. When I ask you for a midpoint, what should your answer look like? A coordinate, right. It should look like an ordered pair. Everybody got that? So don't put 52 or 35 or whatever number, okay? That's not a midpoint. What's a midpoint? A midpoint is an ordered pair, an x and a y. Everybody got that? Okay, so that's what it is. So here's the formula. I'll write it. I'll keep it in red. So the midpoint is equal to, it's an ordered pair, so put a parentheses. And what's the first part? What's the x part? x1 plus x2 over 2, comma what? y1 plus y2 over 2. Doesn't matter what order you add the x's. No. Let's make this parentheses a little nicer. So that and that. Right there is your formula, and it's something you have to memorize. Right? You got to know the distance formula. Can anybody recite the distance formula to me? Without looking? Without looking?
D equals, wait, is it the square root one?
It is.
The square root.
Here, let's do this in white. Wait a minute. All right. D equals big old square root, right?
And then it's,
And then what do? Do the shell first, right? Do you remember that?
oh yeah, you gotta
So I put a couple parentheses, and they're both being squared. Put a plus in between. So always start off with that. That's what I always do. I always start off with that. Now, what do you put in here?
x2.
Yeah. And it really doesn't matter what order you put them in, okay? But you're right. It does not matter. So, yeah, we learned x2 minus x1. Most books do that. A lot of times I'll write x1 minus x2. Doesn't make any difference, right? So this will be what? If I could... What? Oh, come on. If you write too fast with this... y2 minus what? y1. So that's the distance formula. So you got to memorize this, and you got to memorize this. So again, every time you do one of these problems, what should you do? Write it down. Don't just put it at the top and just refer to it every time. All right? Write it down every single time. The reason is it helps you memorize that formula, and that's one that's going to have to be memorized. Let's do an example, and we'll be finished. So that was a little easier, don't you think? I'll keep it there. And here's the example. Example 2. It says find the coordinates of the midpoint. So I'm just going to say find MP. Is that all right? Find the midpoint of, and then they give you 2 random points that make a line segment. So you've got -2, 3 and 1, 5. Okay? You want to do it together, or you want to try it yourself? Yeah, let's try it yourself. And if you get stuck, then I'll help you out. All right, I'll give you a minute. Ready, go. I'll help you out. I'll give you a little hint. Is that all right? This is our first point, so what am I going to call it? X1, Y1. This is my second point, so I'm going to call it X2 and Y2. Does it really matter which one's the first point, which one's the second point? Nope, doesn't make any difference. That's just how I did it. So now, just use your formula and just plug everything in and give me an answer that's an ordered pair. Again, you're not going to say that midpoint is 3 or the midpoint is -7. All right, doesn't make any sense because this is a point. A point is an ordered pair. You got to have an X, you got to have a Y. I'm saying that a lot now, but I can almost guarantee, because it seems like every year I teach this, somebody on a quiz or a test, I'll say find the midpoint, and they'll say it's equal to the square root of 54. No, there's no square roots in this, okay? It's a midpoint, it's an X and a Y. All right, Noah, what'd you do? It's negative, right, 1/2. Don't put 0.5, all right? In geometry, unless they tell you to put it as a decimal, keep everything a fraction, okay? Yeah, -1/2, comma 4, exactly right. Yeah, it's pretty easy, right? So here's what I would do. Well, I'd get a new graphics tablet if I could, because this thing's driving me nuts. All right, so here's what I do. I put the parentheses like this. First thing I do is I put this over 2, and I put this over 2. Everybody watch that? See what I did? All right, and now I just add the x's together. So I'll show all the steps. So -2 is one of the x's, and 1 is the other one. What about the y's? 3 plus what? 5. All right, I'm showing you every step. -2 plus 1 is -1 over 2. 3 plus 5 is, let's do this in our head, that's 8 divided by 2 is 4, and then there is the midpoint. Make sure when you write your answer, put midpoint equals whatever. If they ask you to find the distance, put D equals, right, for distance equals, and then circle your answer. So that's what you should circle, just like that. That was pretty easy, wasn't it? Yeah. It's an important thing to do, all right? We're going to do it a lot, and not just in this chapter. It's not like we just learn it once and then you forget about it. We're going to be doing this periodically through other chapters, not in every single lesson, but once in a while, this will pop up. You're going to have to know how to find the midpoint between 2 points. Everybody good? Questions? All right. Yeah. I told you it was going to be easy, didn't I? I said it was going to be easier than distance formula. And distance formula wasn't really that hard, all right, once you explain it. Okay, that's it. I'm not going to give you homework this weekend since it's homecoming and all that stuff.